So tomorrow we're going to have a march followed by probably a rally planned. It's going to be at 6 o'clock, and that's going to be a thing that's organized to show an expression of solidarity with Occupy Oakland, and to show broad opposition to the police brutality that was subjected to the entire movement, but in particular Scott Olsen, who is still in critical condition due to the injuries he received at the hands of a police officer there. So that's tomorrow, and then later in the month on the 17th, there's going to be a much larger action planned. This is coordinated here in Chicago through Stand Up Chicago, as well as several unions that have expressed interest in the event. But it's also part of a broader action on behalf of the global Occupy movement. It's a call to action that's going to involve all the, or many, if not all, of the Occupy movements, and that's going to be a very large march and rally that's going to also have some other activities attached to it, probably some civil disobedience, at least on behalf of some of the other organizations that have been involved in Occupy Chicago may participate in those events. But in any case, it's going to be a mass mobilization. There's going to be a large number of people and hopefully a large number of cities participating in that. That's going to be on the 17th.
Okay, well, Mark, we've been hearing recently about overtures to different leaders throughout the community and also political leaders. I understand that a delegation from Occupy Chicago has gone to Washington, D.C. and met with some of our representatives. Can you give us a little background on that?
Sure, I can tell you what I know. I wasn't a part of that contingent, so I don't have the specific details of their trip. I know that they met with Senator Dick Durbin from Illinois. It was a small group of us who went to the Enough is Enough rally, I guess was the name of it, in Washington, D.C., and we went out there to show solidarity with several of the causes being expressed there, and also to make our own presence felt. And I know that there's some legislation that was being considered and that seems to have the right language, seems to have the right themes involved. So we went there to take a close look at that and to see if we were going to find ourselves in a position to support it and speak up for it. Beyond that, you might have to find specific details from people who were part of the trip. Again, I wasn't part of it, but I have heard some wonderful things just about the Occupy DC movement and the camp that they have there. Some people that we sent from Occupy Chicago were incredibly inspired by what they saw there. So overall, it seems to have been a very productive and worthwhile trip, but some of the details I haven't been exposed to yet because they just got back a short time ago.
Okay, and also we talked tonight at the GA about a proposed resolution in the Illinois General Assembly. Do you know anything about that?
I missed that discussion. I'm not sure. Which resolution are you talking about?
Well, there was initially a representative who called for a moment of silence and solidarity.
Oh, right. Yeah, I don't really know what discussion we had about that. I caught the articles about it, but I don't know the details of our discussion. I was actually, the first part of the GA, I was at a labor committee meeting, so I missed whatever was discussed here. You'd have to get to somebody else about that.
Sure. And in general, some of the discussions with the city so far and how things are going with the presence here in Occupy Chicago.
Well, we haven't had a direct line of communication with the city. We sort of decided that a while ago, we decided that it didn't seem appropriate to negotiate with people who are holding these charges over us for what we consider to be unjust arrests. There has been some, I would say, indirect communication or interaction with some political leaders, namely Governor Quinn, who recently had us expelled from the State of Illinois building with a pretty intense show of force. About 50 to 70, I didn't count, but a large number of state troopers showed up with dogs and gas masks and the whole 9 yards. Now, it's interesting because he's doing a weird jumping of the lines back and forth. He also made some public statements recently in support of the Occupy movement, but more recently than that, he was pretty critical. Down in Springfield, he was trying to get his veto of this ComEd bill to go through, and he sort of called out the Occupy Chicago movement, wondered why we weren't down there supporting that. It's a bit of a red herring, because we have our own activities here. We're thoroughly engaged in what we're doing. We're very busy on the ground, and that very specific issue is not something that's reflective of our larger goals. It falls under the umbrella of what we're about, but for him to try to call us out and try to make it look as though we're not active in the way that we ought to be active was really in my opinion, an inappropriate way of addressing the situation. So, the channels of communication that we've had with political leaders, they're indirect, but they have been substantive in terms of some of these people expressing where they stand on these things. So I would urge people to take a close look at those reports and generate their own conclusions from that. Personally, I feel that Quinn specifically is being non-committal, trying to be a little bit opportunistic with some of the language. He's an organizer in this, and he's had solidarity with the people, but his actions don't seem to convey that quite as clearly as his words do, and his recent statements seem to contradict some of that. So there's been a lot of back and forth, and it seems like politics as usual, in my opinion. So I don't think the discussions so far have been very meaningful or productive.
And shows of solidarity. Calls to action to come to Occupy and show up.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's kind of the name of the game right now. We have a lot of political momentum. We have a lot of, I don't know, maybe call it social momentum in terms of the broad-based support of the community. And right now, at this point, we've managed to find a position where we can't really be ignored. So we have a lot of attention, a lot of coverage, but at this point, it's kind of a really intense tug of war, and we need more people to come out and show that they support this thing. That's really the main thing that can project our strength to a new level at this point. So that's, aside from growth, there's also the necessity to show solidarity with those cities that have been brutalized by, police there. Denver, for example, and Oakland, of course, is a poignant example. And New York, of course, going all the way back to the beginning of this thing. So the solidarity is important because this movement is global, and it's also national, of course. And, now that we're under attack, now that we're generating momentum and generating awareness and generating leverage through these activities, they're really bringing the boot down harder and harder on us. They're going from ignoring the fact to now clamping down on it, and this police brutality that we've seen is a perfect indication of that. So it's important for the cities to rally together. It's important for the Occupy movements to rally together at this point and show that they do in fact support one another, and that while it's decentralized, it is a interconnected movement. So the call to solidarity is very, very important at this point, both in tactical terms but also in symbolic terms.
And I also want to give you an opportunity also to restate the nonviolent position of Occupy and the expressed desire to stay law-abiding.
Yeah, that's really an important thing to keep in mind, especially as we consider these appalling actions on behalf of law enforcement in some cities. The Occupy movement as a whole, and especially here in Chicago, or not especially, but particularly here in Chicago, speaking on behalf of ourselves, but everywhere, it's a nonviolent movement, and they've remained so. And so it's really important to be cognizant of the contrast between our actions and the actions of those who are coming down upon us. There's really a stark contrast there that needs to be paid attention to, and it's reflective of the fact that of the necessity of this approach. Our methods being a global protest, a global movement, which involves a dissident sort of attitude. It's necessary because the system is broken in the sense that you can't come out and express your voice in a normal, peaceable manner without having force applied against you if and when you obtain enough leverage to be meaningful in the eyes of the people at large. So, it's extremely important, and it's extremely indicative. The contrast between our modalities of behavior are really kind of hitting the nail on the head. And the interesting thing about it is it's not even us generating this. It's the actions of the other side that are making this extremely clear. So it's important for everyone to pay attention to that and to keep in mind that, while we're perhaps politically radical, we're behaviorally very, very peaceful, and we intend to remain so. It's one of our central tenets.